Many of you know this. Last year in December, I turned 55 years old. My dad calls me double nickels. I was lucky because I got to celebrate my birthday twice. You may also know that last November, my daughters threw my husband and I a surprise 55th birthday party. It was a few weeks after his actual birthday and close enough to Thanksgiving that our sister Janelle was here from California along with other family members. But because it was so far in advance of my birthday, I was really surprised. My birthday was not on my mind at all. I never look that far ahead. I live for today, maybe tomorrow. Except for this speech. I'm disappointing Carpe Gum to know that I actually wrote this speech 3 weeks in advance, and I practiced it a little bit. And that's because of the feedback that I received from Clint last time. I listened to Garrison Keillor for the first time. His voice and delivery were not what I expected. And I paid special attention to just his mode of delivery and the way he developed out his characters, because that's the advice that I got from Clint, to emulate that. Now, when I plan my speeches, I get ideas, I get concepts in my head, and I ruminate on them. And if they're sticky, I keep coming back to them. When I have a great idea, I need to write it down. One of the great lies I tell myself is, oh, you'll remember that. I will remember none of it unless I write it down, no matter how good the idea is. So one evening before bed a few weeks ago, I landed on an idea. And I was committed to writing it down. And so I started digging through my nightstand drawers for a pen and paper. But I can't find any paper in my nightstand. Just a kid's book, a roll of masking tape, and a red fine point Sharpie marker. And then some nightstand stuff like an empty eyeglass case, a nightlight that I don't use because I'm not 5 years old anymore, a small jar of Vaseline for my dry cuticles. And I decided not to be too finicky, so I decided I was going to write my speech in red Sharpie marker on strips of masking tape on the children's book, That's Not My Dragon. And I thought, dang girl, that's a good idea. I love masking tape. It really is my favorite tape. I love how it feels. For a while, invisible Scotch tape was my favorite tape, but it was a novelty. I think it's been invented in my lifetime. But if you really look, it's not invisible. It just tries to be. So it's not my favorite tape anymore. Well, 3 sentences into my speech, I realized I'm not going to fit a whole speech on the back of this children's book. And then I start getting anxious. And it's stifling my creativity because I know I can't finish it on this book. And so I set the book aside. I actually get out of bed. And I go get my laptop because I can't not write down this idea. And I start at Microsoft Word, and I'm looking at this blank screen, and my first thing is I have to pick a font. You cannot be creative and write a speech in Arial or Times New Roman. So life is full of big decisions like that, and surprises. At that surprise party, it took me several minutes to realize that all these people, all these family members, my Aunt Mavis and my Uncle Bob and Sho and Luchen, they were there for me, half for me. Sho and Luchen were there all for me, not for my husband. But then I started getting nervous because I'm thinking, wow, these Toastmasters, they know my stories. They know about these people in this room. But Sho and Chen, because they're fairly new, they don't have 10 years worth of my family stories to recall to my family there. So I did relax a little. I was glad that there weren't very many other Toastmasters there. I didn't want anyone going up to Janelle, our sister Janelle, to say, oh, you're Kristi's sister. Your sisters talk about you a lot in Toastmasters. I remember that time you left Kristi at home when you guys went shopping. Oh, she was mad. But that's a funny story now. So you all know my stories, our stories, Kelly and I, so it's best to keep you as far away from my family as possible. That day of that surprise party was a beautiful November day. I remember I got dressed up, I had jeans and a sweatshirt on. I didn't need a jacket. It was just a warm day in November. At work, I've gotten into the habit of I wear my jacket in the car, but I keep it on because I don't like getting out of the car in the parking ramp and walking inside the building and having that in-between cold. I like to be warm all the time. But I also have a backpack purse, and I get out of the car, put on my backpack purse, and once I lock the door, I can't like reach back and put my key in my purse, and so I stick it in my jacket pocket. And that's worked very well for me for many, many months. But one day, I wore my jacket into my work building, and I had a meeting in a nearby building called the Healthy Living Center. It's our gym, but there's also meeting rooms there. I was there for 4 hours. And then I had another 3 hours of meetings in the afternoon, so I scuttle across campus to the building that I work in, which is the 201 building. And 3 hours later, it's 4 o'clock. I go to get ready to go to my 4 o'clock meeting, and I'm going to get all my stuff, and I realize my jacket's not there. And not that I care about my jacket, but my car keys are in my jacket pocket. So now I care. So I called the Healthy Living Center where my morning meeting was, and I asked them to look for it, and they couldn't find it. And I'm like, I know I left it there. I have to go check. So I just ditch out of my 4 o'clock meeting, which actually had my boss in it. Ditch out of my 4 o'clock meeting, and I start heading to the Healthy Living Center. It's a good 12-minute walk. And I get on my way there, I text a coworker who was there after me to say, hey, did you happen to see my jacket? But now I get down into the subway, and I lose phone service in the subway, and I get almost there, and my cell phone dings, and she says, is that your jacket hanging in the kitchenette back at 201? I grabbed it, and I put it there. And I'm like, yay, dang it. I'm both excited and exasperated. Because now I know I've got to turn around and go back. Now it's like almost 4:30. So I just make a U-turn, start heading back, and I see a coworker heading out to the ramp, and he's like, you're going the wrong way. And I'm like, I know, I thought I left my jacket here, but my jacket's there. And he's like, I know your jacket's there. And I'm like, how do you know? So we're like having this conversation as we pass each other. And then I hear, Chris? And I look over, and there's Kelly in the subway. So Kelly and I have this thing, even though we see each other often, when we see each other at work, it's like a super cool thing. Like you could tell we're both really happy to see each other. Like, what are you doing here? I work here, kind of thing. So she's like, yeah, I just heard this like conversation about some dingbat who left her jacket, and I realized that's your voice. You're the dingbat. And I'm like, yeah, my jacket's in 201. So she offered to have me come with her. She would drive me back to my building, wait for me to go upstairs and get my jacket, and then drive me back to the ramp so I didn't have to walk. She said that's the kind of sister she is, the helpful kind. So I make a U-turn, we head back to the ramp, and she does drive me back to 201, and I'm in between cold, like I said I don't like to be, but it was well worth it for me. So I did have a plan B, by the way. If I didn't find my jacket with my car keys in it, I had a plan B. But plan B is never as good as that original plan, where you don't have to make new house keys, and you don't have to order a new car key that cost as much as tuition did at Sacramento State back in 1985. I am getting to be very forgetful, I know that. Did I tell you that my dad calls me double nickels? But I do learn my lessons. I don't put my car keys in my jacket pocket anymore. I still tell my Toastmaster friends how awesome my family is. And I take advantage of expert evaluators when they ask you to listen to Garrison Keillor and try to tell stories like he does. Thank you.